So all successful startups are the same, and all failed startups are different in their own sometimes spectacular way, right? And I say they're all the same because the founders who have made it to some level of success or stability or different stages, they all had to avoid startup killing mistakes at different steps along the way. They
Right,
all had to
right.
get past that. Uh, and only by not screwing any of those critical things up did they get to that next stage. So they're all
Yeah.
kind of the same that way.
What if you could learn directly from the people who've already built what you're chasing? Welcome to Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled, where founders, creators, and leaders reveal the real strategies behind building brands that last. This is your masterclass in real-world innovation. And now your host, A.D. Edwards.
Today on Ingleside Reviews Innovators Unveiled, we sit down with Andrew Ackerman, a two-time startup founder, venture investor, professor, author, and corporate innovation expert who has seen entrepreneurship from nearly every side of the table. He has built companies, backed early-stage founders, worked inside accelerators, advised corporate innovators, and helped entrepreneurs understand what it really takes to survive the startup journey. But behind every pitch deck, funding round, and big idea, there's a human story. Pressure, uncertainty, mistakes, doubt, resilience, and the difficult decisions that shape who a founder becomes. In this episode, we talk with Andrew about the real cost of building, funding, and surviving startups, not just the strategy, but the emotional weight behind the journey. You can watch Ingleside Reviews Innovators Unveiled on the Bravehearts TV network and on YouTube. And you can listen on the Alive Podcast Network and all major podcast platforms. So, Andrew Ackerman, welcome to Ingleside Reviews Innovators Unveiled.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you here. I have a lot of questions because you're very experienced when it comes to entrepreneurship. But everyone doesn't start out as an entrepreneur. So, what drew you to that lane, as it were?
Yeah, so hard as it may believe, when I came out of business school, this wasn't really the thing that it was, right? I mean, back in that mid-90s, if you said you're an entrepreneur, like, oh, poor guy, he's unemployed. And you went to business school, like you wanted to be a corporate banker, you wanted to be a consultant. Maybe the family business sent you there, some professional polish before he takes over the business. To go to business school and learn entrepreneurship, which is totally normal now. Like that just didn't exist. I had a little bit of a background. Both my grandparents, both my grandfathers were entrepreneurs in very different ways. Like one of them was a store owner, right? He'd own a candy store or toy store in kind of an edgy part of town. He'd fix it up, build it up, sell it, and then move another couple of blocks over. My other grandfather, he did everything from like manufacturing Zippo lighters to like creating life insurance or travel insurance products. But unfortunately, both of them died, before I got to college. So really, like, I had this kind of early taste of it, but without the mentorship. So it was something that, in my case, definitely had to be made. It wasn't something that was kind of, nurtured from childhood that way.
Okay. But early on in your career, in your life, when you started to go into the working world, what experience helped shape you to be risk adverse or not so much concerned about the risk? Because being an
Yeah,
entrepreneur is risky.
yeah. No, so like I was originally, moderately conservative and risk adverse, but like I've gotten over the years to become a lot more comfortable with it. So when I came out of business school, I was a consultant. Fortune 100 companies, big companies, slow moving. They pay an absurd amount of money for these consulting firms to come in there and tell them what to do. Sometimes tell them what they already knew, but they needed somebody that they paid a lot of money to say it so that they could actually have the cover they needed to go to the board with it.
Right.
They're very interesting projects. I mean, they're very interesting people, super smart, super motivated. But like, I got tired of doing stuff that like everyone kind of knew where this was going. Like, there was one project in particular where we were supposed to assess like the value of a potential acquisition. So we built this whole model. We had the cash roughly worth this much dollar and these many dollars per share. And they're like, well, is it this much or is it that much? So we spent another couple of months really like nailing it down. And in that period of time, the price per share actually went up. So they still ended up buying the company, but they paid a whole lot more than they would have had to. But they just pulled the trigger when we had a good enough answer. So that was
So
really kind of, at that point, I was really looking to get out to do something that was faster.
was this right after business school, or is this a long?
Yeah, I know. This was the first 4 years out of business school.
Do you remember a moment when entrepreneurship stopped being just an idea and became something you were actually willing to take a chance on? Was that the moment when that happened? Is that what it was that
So
triggered you?
that was like, with everything, there's like a steady building of pressure.
Mhm.
And unless you actually see the opportunity, like, then it's just pressure, right? If you see the opportunity, it's almost like, okay, now I know where everything's going to go. It's like
Mhm.
you can squeeze a balloon that's just creating pressure on the water balloon, or you could pull a trigger on a water gun and like the pressure is actually going someplace constructive. So I had that kind of like, okay, like consulting's not going to be for me long term. And then my last project where I was there at the firm was these two companies that were merging. And when companies merge, you need to be able to like come up with pro forma numbers, what the combined company looks like. But the
Mhm.
danger is if the merger gets shut down, say for antitrust reasons, then anyone from company A who's seen the numbers from company B and vice versa can't go back to their jobs anymore because they're contaminated. It would be, they know too much. So it's a difficult role to staff up. But what we had come in to do is we come into, with the help of a tech consultants on the outside, build an intranet application that let people submit their data, but no one from company A had to see the data from company B and vice versa. That push a number, push a button, and like you get the pro forma for the new company. And I remember thinking, as slow and painful as that system was, I'm like, this didn't exist 4 years ago when I came out of
Mhm.
business school, and now it does. This is what I want to do, right? All that pressure moving too slow. This is where I want to pull all that pressure. So probably within about 5 months, I had already quit the job. I'd moved back from Chicago, where I was at the time, back to New York. And within 9 months after that, I was at my first startup.
Wow. That's a real good that's an experience. So you the startup was your company, or you were helping the startup get established in 9 months
So
later?
I was the third founder on, but it wasn't my original idea.
So I asked that because my next question is this. What's the first major challenge that made you realize that building a company was much harder than it looked from the outside?
Yeah. I mean, remember, got to go back to, this is like 2000, right? So it's like everyone and like their cousin was going to go out and get themselves some VC money and like,
Is that
Menlo
right before the
Park.
dot-com bubble?
Oh, it was right before the epic collapse. So, I started to talk to these guys in late '99. It turned out it was the brother of a good friend of mine that I'd been to business school with. And what they ended up, we spent a couple of months working together just to make sure the vibe was right. And then I quit my consultant detox job and came on full time at the startup. When I came on, they had made this like CD-ROM, which was just like a demo reel of what they were going to build. That's how early it was.
Mhm.
So, it was pretty exciting stuff. There were a couple of like, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. One,
He says more than one.
yeah, there were a couple of them. I mean, one of the big ones was, we get started and then boom, the market collapses on
Mhm.
startups. But even before that, right? Before that, no, 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
One of the other casualties of 9/11 was the VC fund, headquartered on the 99th, 100th floor, whatever they were, that
Yeah.
had offered us a term sheet. So, unfortunately, our contact there is still, as best I know, alive and well. But the firm as a whole literally disappeared overnight, as did
Mhm.
our term sheet. And then, the market starts to collapse around us. So that when we started going back to fundraise again, nobody was deploying money for a while. So we all decided to go without salary for a while. And thankfully, single guy, I had some savings built up. I had the luxury to do that.
How
But
long
I
did you
got to
guys have to go without salary?
oh man, a little over a year.
Wow.
Yeah. I got to
Wow.
tell you, like watching your bank account just go down every month, that is not fun.
No. But it sounds like you didn't go back and go get a job, so you
Well,
believed in what you
part of
guys
it
were
was
doing.
there was still a lot of opportunity, and part of it I
Uh-huh.
had the ability to kind of backstop myself at least for a decent period of time. And part of it was like it was a tough market to get a different job in also. So I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure like, some of the things that make people go out there and become entrepreneurs can also be I don't have any other choice.
Right. This is true. So let me ask you this. You've been dealing with startups for a while now. Early in your founder journey, what did you believe about startups that later turned out to be either incomplete or totally false or
Uh,
naive thinking?
Probably just about everything. Like, the biggest one is like you have a really good idea, like people will fund it. Like ideas are cheap. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I found was, over the years, something would change in the world, right? And then all of a sudden, I'd get a lot of startups that were virtually identical except for the logo and the name.
Uh-huh.
And I'd be like, wow, something's in the air. Like they just put something in the water. Now everyone's got it. But I realized like that's actually the sign of a good startup that's at the right point in time. So what's happening here is there's a why now to those stories. And the why now is usually this was a painful problem that we just couldn't solve. And now something changed. So it could be blockchain came out. Forget about the cryptocurrencies, but the actual technology of blockchain made it possible to do things you couldn't do before.
Uh-huh.
So that means problems that have been just painful and we just have to like suffer with them. Now there's a whole new potential set of solutions to them. Same is true of machine vision. The same is true of, commercially available artificial intelligence. Same is true of speech to text, robotics. All of these kind of breakthroughs in technology, and they've come like much faster than ever before in history, have opened up potential solutions that were closed just a few years earlier. So you combine that with a lot of hungry and talented entrepreneurs. They're like, wow, this was a problem we're just banging our head against the wall forever on. Now I have these new toys to play with. I think I can solve it. So just the laws of large numbers made it virtually guaranteed that a dozen startups all come up with similar-ish ideas at the same time to solve the same underlying problem with this new tool that's suddenly available. By the way, it's not always tools, right? It could be government regulation changes, right? It could be COVID hits. Now, oh, damn, now everyone has to work remote. But it has
Right.
to be a sudden discontinuity. It's not just like, oh, people are getting older, right? That's gradual. It's got to be a discontinuity.
So the former belief was there are too many startups, and then the latter thinking is there's never enough startups. Is that the
No, my
change?
former thinking was like, we came up with this awesome idea. Like, great. The idea is what matters. We're going to go out there and raise money. And now as a VC, I realized like the ideas actually occur to a lot of people, relatively speaking, at once.
Understood.
So, that's now just the ante in the poker game.
So let's talk about building through pressure, dealing with setbacks, and the reality of founding or funding a company and founding a company. So you've built companies from the ground up. What was the hardest emotional part of being a founder that people rarely talk about?
Well, the highs are high and the lows are low,
What do
right?
you
So
mean?
I remember vividly when our number one competitor went out of business just in the spring. Ours was it was a cyclical business, seasonal business. So that was like a toy store going out of business in November. Like that was like a gift from God. We were like thrilled. And then 9/11, in addition to like massive property damage and loss of life, there goes our term sheet. Right?
Wow.
Highs are high, lows are low, because you're right there on the edge, right? You're doing stuff with like way too little resources. Because if you had the resources, you'd have done it already, right? And you're figuring things out that are hard because no one's done it before. because they had done it before, would it be worth making a startup out of? Right? Again, I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking tech startups. So everything, like, it's like somebody sneezes in Alaska and you get a cold.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a big deal. That's actually, I know we're going to get to this later, but that's actually why when I ultimately wrote my book, I wrote it as a novel rather than as like a how-to guide, is I wanted to get that feeling across, what it actually feels like to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, like, no one really gets it. That's the other thing. No one gets it unless they've done it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your friends are like, they're listening, they're all excited about you. They don't get what it's like when, like, you're staring at an empty screen. You're like, I don't know what I need to do next, or I don't know
Right.
where I'm going to make payroll next. So it's
So,
a different, it's an experience that you just can't get across
and
in
it's a
like,
similar it's a similar experience for each entrepreneur, but it's all the same for each entrepreneur, if that makes sense.
yeah. So like the joke is, it's a really horrible book I read in high school, had a really great first line. So I'm going to repurpose that line. So all successful startups are the same, and all failed startups are different in their own sometimes spectacular way, right? And I say they're all the same because the founders who have made it to some level of success or stability or different stages, they all had to avoid startup killing mistakes at different steps along the way. They
Right,
all had to
right.
get past that. Uh, and only by not screwing any of those critical things up did they get to that next stage. So they're all
Yeah.
kind of the same that way.
So when your company was facing setbacks, what did that pressure feel like personally? And not as a business case study, but as a human being carrying the weight of the outcome.
Yeah. So this is where, who you are and how you handle these kind of things. I want to use the word resilience because I think that has, what am I not resilient? Like, it's not, not a nice way to put it, but who you are and then handle these pressure and where you are in your life and your ability to absorb these setbacks make a big difference. It's like, I've always been pretty good at about compartmentalizing. It's like I
Yes.
could like leave the pressure aside and go out and do what I needed to do.
Uh-huh.
And I was also saying, well, I didn't have any kids. My personal expenses were as low as I could make them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was able to weather that storm pretty well. But, let's say you got 3 kids in private school and, your startup's not doing so well, and you're the kind of person that worries a lot to begin with, like, you could lose a lot of sleep,
Right.
right? You could eat or worse, you could lose a lot of hair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this didn't come from startups.
I'm just teasing you, right? But it can really like, and it in fact can really affect your health. So one of the things
Definitely.
I tell people when they're thinking about quitting my day job to do a startup, I just want to make sure like they're in the right place mentally in general and in their life as a whole
Mm-hmm.
where they can do this because they will hit a setback. And
Yes.
like it will be a big deal if they're not prepared for it.
So you've done quite a few things pretty successful, but when you look back, was there a moment because you know what they say, Monday quarterbacks, hindsight is 2020. Now we're talking about Andrew during the 2000s.
Yeah.
You don't know what's in store. You know what you want.
Hmm.
Was there a moment when you questioned whether you was the right person to lead or build or keep going?
Oh yeah, every other Tuesday and every other Thursday and
Yes.
most every other Wednesday as well.
Every
Yeah.
day that ends with Y.
Yeah. So any day that ends with Y, exactly. Except Saturday. I'm off Saturday, right? So, it's tough. Like if you're doing something, I want to make a distinction here, right?
Of
So
course.
if you're doing something that's like on the brand new tech startup side of the fence, that's by design. You can't paint by number on that, right? You can't say, okay, I know exactly how this works because there's 5 other companies that do it. I'm just going to do it here where there's nobody doing it. I'm going to do it like a little differently. Now, if you're going out there and you're setting up a new restaurant, car wash, dry cleaner, a consultancy, a law firm, right? You can be a professional, but you know how those businesses work, right? You're going to be a great law firm because you're a great lawyer and you know how to get clients better than other people, but you know the economics. You're going to be a great dry cleaner because there's no other dry cleaner in this town. The town's growing big enough that like it can support it. Why would people drive to the next town when they can do it right here? So you know, in those cases, you know everything but the top line. You know all the cost structure. You just don't know how, you know, if you're going to get the revenue in that you think you're going to get. So that takes some pressure off. It's like, yeah, I've been there. I've done that. I know how to operate a car wash. I know how to operate a restaurant. When you're doing something that's like a tech startup side and Airbnb, I'm going to get people to like rent out their spare couch for people who come in from out of town that they've never met before in their lives. Right. And imagine like those guys had to take a look at, everyone had to look at the ceiling, look at each other and say, are we acting crazy? Are people actually going to do this? That's how you know you're doing something kind of really new and original in my world. So you got to doubt whether or not you can do it. You got to doubt whether or not it's a reasonable like thing to try.
Do you think doubt's important?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly keeps you humble, certainly keeps you testing your assumptions. Like, so I know you're going to ask me about this a little later, but I'll foreshadow a little bit.
Go ahead, please.
When I became an investor, you know, I came into kind of 3 reactions to either setbacks or advice from founders.
Okay.
One was no, we'll keep doing this, right? I think I know the right way to go, right? Regardless of the advice, regardless of like, you know, how much experience you have or the reasoning you gave behind it, they were like stuck in that direction. They just wouldn't take it. And listen, nothing can prove me wrong. I don't think you're going in the right direction, but nothing would make me happier, I mean to say, than you proving me wrong. So like, I could be wrong. You go out, best of luck, but I'm not going to bet on you because I don't think that's the right direction. That's one side. The other extreme, you had the weather vanes. Whoever they talked to last, like, oh my God, I got to go do that. And they talked to somebody else, and they pivot right back, right? So you had those weather vanes. What you want is to cultivate this well-reasoned but loosely held kind of mentality. Like, this is where I think I'm going. Here's why I'm doing this. But hey, if any of these things are wrong, I'm willing to reassess that. So when I would talk to a startup and I'd say like, oh, I think you should do X, Y, Z, if I didn't actually tell them why, they would say, well, that's interesting. What's the logic behind it? And I said, well, you know, I've seen these models work in these industries, but not in these industries. The conversion rate's too low. You live and die by like the upgrade from like free to premium. And you just haven't proven that you have that, you know, you have a high enough number on that conversion ratio. Unless you can prove that, like, I just think it's not going to work. I've seen it fail this way before. And then the founders, if they're in that kind of middle road, they'll be like, oh, that's fair. Well, let's go put a couple $100 out on Google AdWords and see what happens.
So what percentage would you say fall into that last category?
You know, it's really hard for me to say because it's something you can learn, right? So
Yes.
I can come up with people and they can be like, this guy said this guy said that. And I'd say, well, did he tell you why? So, well, I don't know, he's got lots of experience in this place. But like, no, you got to ask him why, right? He might be basing it on a misunderstanding of your business. Or he might be basing it on a data set that you don't have, you know, formally or informally. So you got to understand which is which, because if he gave you that advice and he misunderstood something and you're following it, well, of course that's bad. So that can be taught. You know, I only notice when I get in there and the guy's like, no matter what you're doing, no matter how you explain it, he's like, no, right, I'm doing this. That's 15, 20% the founders. I mean, I've gotten maybe better in the circles that I'm in at not being pitched by those founders that much.
Right.
Except for this morning. That happened this morning. But, and the other two, like, I can't tell coming out of the meeting whether they took my advice because it was well-reasoned or because they're a weather vane. I just don't know.
Yeah. That's interesting because if they're listening to what someone else said, they could be in the same industry, but they could be in a different geographical location. So the answer isn't cookie
Yeah,
cutter for them. That's a good point.
yeah. So that's like a great example for the other side. People are like, "Oh, man," like, you know, let's give something that's not a little techy, like, "Oh, man," like, people are killing it with student housing. You can make tons of money putting up student housing. You're like, "Yeah, except not right here when they already built a lot."
Right.
Right? So you gotta know your
Exactly.
area. Like, it's not so simple. The same advice is certainly not one size fits all, and it could be geography. It could be, different variations on geography, like weather. In the real world, there's a lot of things that you gotta take into account. You can't just blindly take people's advice.
This is true. Now, as a founder, is there one mistake in particular that you think taught you something that you could not have learned any other way?
Oh, so that's a high bar because, like, my whole point in writing the book is so you can learn from my mistakes or this fictional startup's mistakes so you don't do it that way. So I think you can ultimately learn all these things uh, other than really how it feels. And you can get a sense of that from the book. But there were lots of things that I didn't get and I had to learn the hard way. But I think that if you are smart about who you surround yourself with, and you're smart about, you know, trying to get as much information as possible before jumping in on any critical decision,
Mhm.
you can go into it. It's not like I have to touch the match to feel what it's like not to play with fire.
Exactly. Exactly. But the reason I asked that question, Andrew, you said earlier, you made a great point that being an entrepreneur, the reason you wrote your book in the way that you did as a novel is because a lot of the things you couldn't get the lessons unless you experienced it.
So
But
you
many
won't
people
understand how it feels unless you experience it. So
true.
it's a little bit like I can tell you, like, don't mix those spices. It's gonna
Mhm.
taste horrible. Now, and you can learn those rules and avoid making horrible stuff. But unless you actually, like, try it and taste it, you won't know. Like, you won't
Yes.
know that it tastes horrible. Now,
Yes.
I would prefer that you not learn that. I would prefer that you not fail to figure out how it feels to fail. But in the startup world, like, the most you can do to try to learn it sort of by analogy and understand, like, yeah, that's not for me, or yeah, that's 100% for me. That's what I'm trying to get across. But you won't
Right.
actually get it on a gut level. Even if you're making the right decisions, you
Mhm.
won't actually get it on a gut level until that happens.
There's so many people out there, Andrew, that are afraid to go ahead and take the chance on starting their company or doing certain things because they're afraid of failing. But I'm trying to draw out the fact that certain things you don't learn until you go out there and
Yeah.
do it. Like you've made these mistakes or these learning lessons, but it didn't ruin you. You just learned from them.
Yeah. So there's a very legitimate reason to be afraid of being and doing startup. It is on the numbers a crazy thing to do most of the time. And yeah, this is where you are in your career, right? So if you're like mid-career and you've got like a shot at like some very senior roles and you stay the course, you're giving up a lot
Mhm.
to do a startup. If you're earlier on, you're out of school, you do it for a bit, it doesn't work out, it's still going to look good on your resume,
Right.
right? You're not giving up a lot. So that's what I mean about where you are in your journey. The thing that I think that you're getting at, or at least one of the things that you might be getting at, is oh man, that wasn't so bad. I can keep going.
Exactly.
That is general resilience. So you can learn a little bit in other contexts. Like I went out there, I took a sales job. Oh my God, it sucks to make cold calls. Well, when the first 12 people hang up on you and the 13th one listens to you, you're like, you know what? Big deal. 12 people hung up on you. That wasn't so
Right.
bad. Public speaking, people like, I'd rather be like naked than public speaking. I'm like, well, depending on how you look like, I'll take that offer. But no, but like, if, it's, you do it and then you look back on it, like, "Well, that wasn't so bad."
Yeah, some people do things and then they say, "I wish I would have done it even sooner."
Oh, yeah.
So
Because once you realize that, like, that wasn't so bad. I failed. It was embarrassing. And I got right back up and I did it again instead of being stuck where I was for like, you know, on the cusp of a decision I couldn't make for 10 years. So you can learn that. You can only learn it by failing,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a startup or something else. And I feel like those skills are transferable. The more you realize through experience that that failure, what's the worst that can happen? Then that will transfer to your startup world, personal life. Hey,
Yep.
I tried to kiss the girl. She said no. Okay, like it was fine. I wasn't,
Yeah. And if you
I
didn't,
wasn't like aggressive about it. Just pull back.
if you stayed over on the what they call it, a wallflower,
Yeah,
it's
you never get a
automatic no.
kiss.
It's
Exactly.
automatic no.
We
Exactly.
all go through that in our teen years. Like you go ask a girl out. I mean, I guess maybe kids these days they just hang out together. So like I got teen kids.
Andrew, we come from the age where we actually had to go up to the girl in front of her friends and ask
Oh, you
them
had to
out.
walk
Now they
across a
just,
crowded hallway.
yeah, you now they just ask for their Instagram. It's a
No, man.
different age out here
They
now.
did everything but put a spotlight on you back in the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's move away from the founder. Let's talk about the investor, Mr. Ackerman, the investor. After being a founder yourself, what changed when you moved to the investor side of the table?
So I moved to different seats at the table. Right. I started
Mm-hmm.
off as an angel investor, which is very different than running accelerator, which is different than running a VC fund.
While you on that, can you explain
Yeah, yeah.
those
I was
three
gonna tell you what we
differences
mean
to
by
our
that, right?
audience?
So, an angel investor is usually just a person who has money, right? Enough money that they're gonna put like 10, 25, 250,000, depending on how much money they have, investing into a very early stage startup. May even be as early as an idea. Usually they've got something built, but still not ready for a professional investor. A VC fund is a venture capital fund. That is generally an organization that has taken other people's money to invest in startups on their behalf. So there's like, and I could talk about the accelerators a little bit, but like the main difference between the two the main differences are, number one, if you're an angel and you don't want to invest in a month because you're just not seeing anything good in that month, that's cool. You can do it. I'd say I liked in 6 months, so I didn't do it. I think valuations are too high. I'm just not going to do it. But if you're a VC fund, you have to deploy capital in a certain period of time. If you don't, you got to go back and explain it to your LPs, to your investors. If I'm an angel and I want to get, I see like, I saw 2 great startups this month and I decided to invest in one of them. That's a lot of deal flow. If you're a VC fund, okay, you want to make 10 investments in a year. You have 3 months, you didn't see a good investment, that's going to be a problem. You see 4 of them that are really good in 2 months, you might have to pass on some of them because you need to keep that powder dry for later. It's like a different set of, they're operating, a different set of criteria that suddenly you have to deal with that you didn't have to deal with before.
Your execution is going to be different. Yeah.
And the accelerator, which is kind of in between an angel and a VC fund, sometimes called an incubator, sometimes called a bunch of other things, are basically usually set up like a VC fund, but invest earlier than a VC fund, not as early as an angel. And they're trying to get those startups just over that hump until they're VC ready. Now, give you an idea, we used to do this by cohort, which would mean we'd start with like a group of 10 or 12 startups. To get 10 or 12 startups that we liked well enough to want to do this, I had to speak to, or at least look at the applications of over 1,000 startups. And since we had a beginning to get 10 that I liked, and I couldn't do it over the course of the year because I wanted to start on June 1 or whatever the date was.
Right.
And if I looked at something like in like July of last year, they're a totally different company by now, maybe out of business.
Right.
Maybe they've already raised their VC round. They don't need me anymore. So I had to look at 1,000 startups in just over 2 months. So I went from, hey, I got 2 great startups this month. I chose to invest in one, to I need to look at 1,000 startups over these 2 months. That is like, man, I thought I knew what I was doing, but hell, this is a totally different game.
So with that in mind, now you're at a different side of the table. You're not a founder, you're investing. What changed?
So the reason I did it was I got sold the company. Actually, it's not true. I started to do some angel investing along the way. I had a friend that was doing it, had a little extra cash. I wasn't so worried about the startup going under anytime soon. I was more worried about when I was actually going to be able to sell the company. So I did a little bit of angel investing. I just got lucky. And when I left the company, I ended up working at a family office for a little bit, which is kind of a rich old guy who's just needs someone to invest his own money. So that was interesting. Did another startup after that. That was an experience, which is a nice way of saying failure, including lawsuits and hurt feelings. And I was going to do my third startup. And then I had the opportunity to start running this accelerator. So it was kind of a gradual step-by-step how I got into that role.
Did becoming an investor yourself cause you to be more compassionate toward founders or more demanding from founders?
Yes and yes, I guess. There's among the best founders, there's a little bit of a preference to work with VCs who also have their own startups because they get it, rightly or wrongly. But being a founder doesn't mean you're a great VC because there's so many other things about recruiting, assessing. Like you could be great at building a business, not be great at assessing 20 other businesses.
Okay.
So, it was useful to me, but it was like necessary, but not sufficient. I had to learn a lot of other skills. Every step in my journey, I had to learn other skills. Just when I thought I knew what I was doing, all of a sudden it's like, hey, you don't know anything. So I'll tell you what it's made me in some ways. I know what they're going through. I know what the struggle is. There's a thing in the world called the VC soft no. So let's say you just pitched me on a startup and I'm like, yeah, there's not a snowball's chance in hell I'm investing in that startup. That's the dumbest idea I've heard in a long time. And that's saying something. The way I say that to you is, hey man, that's really cool what you're working on, but just a little bit too early for us. Can you come back to me when you've got a little bit more traction? Now, the problem is that is the exact same sound as, man, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I really think it has a lot of promise. You're just a little bit early for me. Can you come back in 6 months when you have more, traction? Like same words. First time was, F off, dude, you're bothering me. And the second time is like, man, I'm really excited about what you're building. But they sound the same to the founder. So being a founder just in general, myself, forget about exit or not, just being a founder and being on the other side of it, I will not use a VC soft no.
Okay.
So I will tell you, hey, I think your time is better spent doing something else. Here's why I don't think it's going to work. It's just, your life is too short to be banging your head against this wall. Now, if I really do mean it, I'll say, I think you need a little bit more traction. And I'll tell you what, when you get to, and I'll give you a number, come back to me, right? When you get to that number, like other things may factor in, but at least that's what I'm thinking is where you wouldn't automatically be too early for me.
Well, that answer seems to be more helpful.
Well, that's the part of like being a prior founder. Like I just hated not knowing where I stood.
Right.
Yeah. So that's something I'm more empathetic to.
Yeah, that's a good take on it. Andrew, do you think it's important if a founder of a company starts to invest in other companies that he stays into the field that he had his company in, or does it matter once you're an investor?
So, if you're still running the company, I would much prefer that you focus 100% of your effort on making money for that company because that's how I make money when you sell.
No,
Now,
what I mean is,
yeah,
let me.
yeah.
He sold his company. He's
Yeah, okay,
exited.
that's fine. So you exited, found it.
He's been in the restaurant business. He's been in the food industry. Should he, if he now he wants to invest in other companies, should he just invest in food and restaurants, or can he go into tech? Can he go into travel?
So having sold a company, you are barely and maybe not even that qualified to invest in that industry. So there's so many different nuances. Now, there are people who are generalists and they're very good at it. But it takes a rare type of person that can dive into a totally new industry and understand this is the mind of this customer. And then on top of that, get a sense of like, this is the competitive landscape. I mean, you can get there. It just takes time. And there's a lot of times where people tell me, oh, I'm doing XYZ. It sounds really interesting. Then I find out there's 20 companies that are, 5 years ahead of them. I don't know. I don't know that industry.
Right.
Now, if I were a generalist and I was willing to think about that investment, I would then do a deep dive into the industry. But you got to be prepared to do that. You don't have that coming out of the company you sold. Now, we keep talking about industry. It could be a type of business model. Let's say you sold to small mid-sized businesses. It's a different skill than selling to large companies or selling to individuals. So you might be like, okay, I sold to SMBs, small mid-sized businesses, for catering services. I could probably also sell decorating services or staffing tools. I know how to market to SMBs. But you should, if you built a business in an area and you've been very successful there, that's what gives you an edge over other people looking at those same startups. You want to compete in an area you have an edge or an area where you don't have an edge. Same as a startup. Not different as an investor.
So as an investor, when founders are coming to you and they're making their pitch, what do you notice that may not be written anywhere in the pitch deck?
Sure. Coachability, right? One of the things we're always looking at, like, how coachable are these people? And that goes back to what I was saying before, not a weather vane, not a stick in the mud, right? We'll push back a little bit. We're like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm like, if they're like, well, we're thinking about doing it this way because, but if you have, you disagree, or if you have other data we're not aware of, like, ears open. Like, we're looking for those kind of cues. If we get in there, we can't get out until that company exits, is acquired, goes public, goes bankrupt. I mean, then we're out for sure. But not the way we're hoping to exit. So if that's it, we're in there for the long. We've been with these guys for like 12 years. So we really want to make sure we're in bed with the right people.
Coachable,
it's a long
easy
time
to work
be in
with.
bed with someone who you don't trust or you don't think has like the right mindset.
So as an investor, you've seen founders in many different situations. You've seen them face rejection. You've seen them failed to raise funds. You've seen the industry change. You've seen things stalled, like what happened with you as a founder during 9/11. So when you see this as an investor and founders that are out here listening to the show or watching, what do these moments reveal about the person? And from an investor standpoint, what are you thinking about this person?
Yeah, I want to see how they're going to respond to it, right? So I should have a good idea how they're going to respond to it because I've gotten to know them before I've invested. I've gotten to know them a lot as an investor, an advisor to the company. So like, I should have a good idea and I shouldn't be too surprised. Like the founder was like, oh, first sign of trouble goes, oh, I'm out. I got another job in corporate. I'm like, well, that's not what I invested in.
Right.
There's a saying, I invest in missionaries, not mercenaries. So like some of the things is guys in my old fund used to do a lot of health tech. So you get a lot of like guys who are like part MD and they left halfway to found a company because like, my God, like my mother had breast cancer. She's going in for radiation therapy. And like the way they were doing it, I'm like, that can't be how you do that. Right. So they're like personally connected to it. Like you look for those kind of like, it's a mission to them. Because then when the going gets cut tough, they're going to be like, no, wait a minute, I got to solve this. But I will say one of the hardest conversations I have with a startup is with a founder who wants to keep going, but I think it's time to throw the towel in. Because like you don't know when you're like, oh, I'm just so close to a breakthrough. I'm so close to a breakthrough. And as an investor, my interests are in letting you keep plugging away. So you already got my money. And even if the odds of success are going down because you've tried all the things that you thought were going to be successful, and now they're doing Hail Marys, right? At some point, I got to go out there and say to them, hey guys, like, this is not the best use of your time. Like, it's time to go on and do something else, even though it's against my self-interest.
Andrew, what do you think founders misunderstand about venture capital and fundraising? What's a big myth out there that's just not realistic? You got all kind of reality shows about how to get funding.
Yeah. So Shark Tank is not like that, right? It's very adversarial on Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that. Like, we don't want that reputation. The best founders can choose who they want to work with. So why are we going to come across like dicks? Like, we want to be the people they want to work with. So, that's not it at all. The other thing also is not glamorous.
Uh-huh.
It's like, it is a hard, although not overly complicated thing to do, right? You want to raise money, there's a way to do it. There's a process, right? I've talked about it, I lecture about it, I've written about it. You just got to grind it out. A lot of them will look for shortcuts. Right? They think, I'm going to talk to the first couple of guys and they're going to jump on it. Like, no, you got to talk to 100 plus investors, relevant investors, before, you're going to get your money. And so they don't realize that. They look for shortcuts like, oh, I'm going to use an AI tool. I'm going to go cold email everybody. Well, that doesn't work at all. Right? No, you got to do the hard work about getting warm intros. That's how you get funded.
More intros, more get in front of more people. So you've got a unique situation because you've been a founder and an investor. Now, I'm sure some of your colleagues are investors that maybe never had a chance to found a company. So on the flip side, I just asked about the misconception from the founder side. What are some misconceptions that investors sometimes have about what founders are actually going through emotionally?
Yeah, so I think that the experienced investors get there eventually, regardless of where they started out. Because
Okay.
some of the younger guys coming into it who come out maybe straight out of business school or they're associates out of undergrad, it's a really weird thing to happen. Like, you're talking to all these people who are asking you for money. You might be 25, you might be 22, right? All these people come and ask me, like, it's a pretty, like, that kind of power can go to your head. Not because, like, you can write them the check, but you can say no and they never get beyond that. And they start asking they're asking your advice. So if you're like a 22-year-old who's never done it, but now they're asking you on panels, and you start like BSing, you give them advice. What do you really know?
You don't
It's
have the
like,
experience. Yeah.
you don't have it. Like, excuse me, your says you're barely qualified to do the role you're in, right? You're still learning that. And now you may be getting quite good at that role, right? The finding, doing the early vetting. But when they ask you questions like, what should I do for this? What should I do for that? You should have, like, the maturity to say, you know what? Truthfully, I've never done that. That's not what my skill set is this. Anything I would tell you, probably no better than just random advice in general.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about accelerators again, corporate innovation and patterns of
Mhm.
success. Now, have you worked with accelerators and corporate innovation programs? After seeing so many startups close, what patterns separate founders who survive and the founders who burn out or break down, in your opinion?
So it depends on the stage, right? The stage in I would say the cycle. Like, there's a stage in the cycle where things are frothy and a lot of, like, marginal ideas
Mm-hmm.
get funded. And it's usually because new guys come in. They've never done it before. They're angels. They get excited. Money flows into, let's just say, marginal startups that should never have been funded. And then the market gets a little tighter. They just get throttled. Those guys go back to their day jobs if they can get them. Those investors go back to investing in, multifamily properties in Louisiana, right?
Mm-hmm.
There I go. Startups didn't work for me. I'm out. Uh, so that's driven by the stage in the cycle. And then there's the other ones where, hey, stuff doesn't work. It just sometimes, even if you've done everything right, you've tested as much as you can test beforehand, there's certain irreducible risks that you can, unknowns that you just can't test without doing. Now, sometimes it just happens. I've had startups that do that. The reasons those did not succeed in others, because the one thing that they needed to test, they tested it properly, turned out the answer was no.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's not them. That's just the underlying state of, the idea they're trying to tackle. And then finally you get to that third state where you got people who have ideas that are potentially viable, could be made into great businesses, and they're not being sandbagged by like a downturn. The difference between the ones that succeed and the ones that don't succeed comes down to this mentality of, before I do anything, I'm going to find any way I possibly can to test this cheaply and quickly. So one of the techniques I give, like, let's say you're trying to build an app.
Okay.
Rookie founders will go out and just start building. Like, I got this great idea. It'll take me 2-3 months. I'll just build it. And they come out 3 months later and like, here's my app, everybody, try it. And then it's like crickets. No one wants it. Or, if they're lucky, people do it, but no one uses 3/4 of what they build. So why not? They didn't really solve our problems. But there's one thing, if they're lucky, people like, so they use it. Experienced founders get close to their customers first. And they say, hey, before I start building anything, I want to make sure that I'm building something that somebody actually really, really wants. Now, one of the techniques I talk about for doing that is what I call an index card app. So I'm actually reaching into my drawer to pull out an index card, right? So it's literally index cards or large Post-it notes.
Right.
I don't know, $8 at Staples. Then you get yourself a pen.
Mm-hmm.
Steal it from a bank.
This is old school. This is old school.
Totally, on purpose.
Okay.
Old school on purpose. Take your pen, sketch out each page of the app. Exactly the person says, don't worry about making it pretty. It's actually better if it's not pretty. People are like distracted.
Almost like
design.
A storyboard.
Yeah, storyboard sketches.
Okay.
And then you go up to someone, preferably who maybe doesn't even know you. You go, hey, I'll buy you a coffee at Starbucks. I'll buy her probably if I can have 20 minutes of your time. I'm testing an app. Okay. And I say, listen, I want you to pretend, Bob, I want you to pretend that you just downloaded this site and you're opening it up and this is the screen that you see right here. This is the screen. I'm not going to be there when you download this app. So don't ask me any questions about it. I just want you to interact with it as if this were your actual phone. So if you're going to click a button, press it on the card. If you're going to swipe, swipe on the card. The only thing I want you to do differently, Bob, is I want you to just verbalize what you're thinking. I can't read your mind. I'm not going to answer any questions, but like you're like, oh, I don't know which button to press. Say that out loud. Or like, I'm afraid I want to press this button, but I'm afraid I don't know, my phone's going to blow up. Just verbalize it, what you're thinking. But whatever you do, whatever you push, click, or swipe, I'll give you the next screen. So they tap on something. Oh, here's the next screen. You just do that.
And you do
like
that.
20.
You do that with 10 to 20 people. You got like a case study,
Exactly.
and you learn a lot.
So in the example I gave before, instead of going out and building and finding out that 3/4 or nobody's using like most of your site, you'd be like, hey, it's done. We're 20 minutes. By the way, why didn't you ever click any of these things? That's like, yeah, I don't need that. So then you saved yourself a bunch of time. You'll make that. Or if they're saying like, I want to click this, but like, I can't do it because you're missing this piece of the puzzle. It's not going to solve my problem. Well, then you know what else you need to build. But it all costs you is like this $8 pack of index cards and a pen that you could probably steal from the bank around the corner. And maybe a couple of cups of coffee if that's what you got to do to get the people to talk to you.
And we're not endorsing stealing people, but it's just
the pens are there giving them away. I mean,
it's hyperbole.
Yeah.
So as an investor, you've seen founders do lots of different things. When they're under pressure, sometimes to grow quickly, what bad decisions have you seen founders make repeatedly?
Like all of them, different for each one. But I'm under time pressure right now with my next appointment, but I'm going to answer this question fully. I'm not going to. No, I am, but I'm joking a little bit. So sometimes when they're under pressure, they get flustered. They try to cut corners. They don't explain things right. Like some things you just can't do, right? So sometimes if you really do need that feature to meet the critical pain point, it just doesn't work without it. Pushing without it doesn't help you at all. One of the other things that I see, and I don't see it that often, thank God, but it's a tragedy when it does, is good founders with good ideas uh, may shade the truth. Now, there's a little bit of fake it till you make it that's normal. Like if you're 80% of the way there, you know you can do it, and you got a big customer that says, "Can you?" You're like, we do that, no problem.
Are investors expecting that from founders?
Mm, to a degree, we understand what people mean. Like, and we'll ask you. It's like, oh, we can do A, B, and C. Are you doing it, or can you do it if you had a customer that was willing to pay you? Like,
Okay.
oh, we can do it. Okay, if I gave you the money tomorrow, could you turn it on? No, it would take me 3 weeks. Okay, so we know how to ask those
So,
questions,
yeah.
and that's
Okay.
fine. Like I would, in many cases, I would rather the company be in that stage than to put the 3 weeks in before they've made the sale.
Right. So investor has to have discernment
Yeah,
and
no,
ask more questions. Yeah.
we know how to speak that language. We're okay with that. I'm thinking more like in diligence when people ask you things and you will lie about them. Oh, we have
Mhm.
that signed contract. Or, oh, yeah, I completed my PhD. Ain't no reason to lie about that.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. And in some cases, when you do get caught on that, you've lost your credibility. And now a good startup with otherwise good, but founders who just buckled under the pressure, now they're dead in the water.
Yeah. So, what have accelerators taught you about how entrepreneurs learn, adapt, and mature under pressure?
Well, I'm the wrong person to ask about maturity because I'm still like somewhat arrested. But I'll tell you how they learn. And I learned this over my time at Accelerator. They learn from stories. They learn from stories. Like I can give you the advice. Like before I gave you that advice, like, hey, you're gonna live and die on customer acquisition cost or on the people that convert from free to premium. You should do this, test it, blah, 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 blah. I can tell you that. And you might take the advice. Good founders will take the advice. But I can also tell you a story about it. I say, listen, there's this other startup I know. They were in the same situation. They needed a 2% conversion rate from free to premium. They got it. They had a business. If they didn't have a business. And they were in our program and they hadn't built the premium features yet. So like, so what's your plan? I was like, oh, we're going to spend the next 2 months building it. I'm like, well, that's 2 months. You're going to be on demo day. You're going to be pitching all these VCs. What happens if it doesn't work? What happens if you don't have the numbers? Like, well, I guess we're in trouble. But no, you can go out there. You put a page up right now to start to sell it. Right? You know what you got. You know what the premium's going to be. If anyone clicks buy now, it says coming soon. Big deal. Right? But you'll know what the percentage of people that would click buy now. That'll tell you if you're on the right track. So they did that. Came back the next week. We're screwed. We don't have anything near the number we need. And I said, well, okay, what's the plan? It's like, well, we have this idea. We're going to take what we did, go sideways. We're going to pivot, build something different. And we think that'll work. I'm like, well, sure. Right now you're at a dead end. Go ahead. Now that company that pivoted like that is now called SeatGeek, and they're a unicorn. They're $1 billion plus company.
Really?
And they would not have existed had they done we're going to build first, then see what happens. Now,
Interesting.
forget about the story itself, which is awesome. They're great people. They have every success to them. But now you're the startup I just told that story to. So now you see yourself in their shoes like, oh my God, if they came that close to not being anything, I got to test this then.
Exactly.
Right. So you identify with it, you internalize it. And that's why, again, if I was going to write anything, which I did, it was going to be in the form of a book.
So
novel.
let's talk about that book before we wrap up our interview. The Entrepreneur's Odyssey. You've explained why you wrote it rather in the
Yeah.
form of a novel. And I think that's genius, actually. The title suggests that the entrepreneurship journey is a process. You used the word Odyssey. Was that
Yeah.
purposely used?
Well, so yeah, I happen to have the book with me because like not more. And if I'm on camera, I'm going to have it with me.
Of course.
So it was originally, I had a different name. It turned out that like someone I very much respect in the space used that name. My publisher pointed out to me, it's a story about startups and entrepreneurship, and you don't have either of those words in the title. I'm like, oh, good point. So it says the Entrepreneur's Odyssey. Obviously, it just kind of worked for me. It is life's a journey, but then it's also a novel guide to startup success. So I like to play on the word novel, new, and start. So I was partly
Was
saying like,
Life's
you know
a
what?
Journey the original title?
No, the original title was "Don't Make Me Think."
I like your friend's suggestion. I do like Entrepreneur's Journey,
Yeah.
Odyssey rather, because
Actually, no, I
it's
take it
more
back. That "Don't
descriptive.
Make Me Think" was the second idea, but then they pointed out that's more of an investor thing. The first one was "The Art of the Start."
The art, that's catchy, but you don't know
Yeah,
what the
and a
book is
very,
about.
very smart guy in the space named Guy Kawasaki has written 2 books with that title, so I couldn't do it.
Uh, so if a founder is listening right now and they are in the middle of a setback, losing confidence, struggling to raise money, or wondering whether to keep going, what would you want them to understand?
Listen, you're not alone. Lots of people have been there. You need to understand whether or not this is something you can fix or not. You need to understand whether it is a fatal flaw to the startup or maybe a lack of skill on your part. It's okay. Not everyone's going to be great at everything. Or if there is a solution within your grasp.
Okay. Andrew, I want you to think back. In the beginning of this interview, I talked about your origin story.
Mm.
You talked about it, rather, and I commented on it. You were just out of business school. That Andrew and the word success versus the Andrew today and the word success, do they mean the same thing or have they changed the meaning? Have the meaning changed?
The meaning's deepened a little bit. Like, I think back then, like having a big financial success would have felt like, oh, that's what success is. But now I'll say it's more about being able to make money and do something that you love. Like if you can do what you love, you'll never feel like you're working. And to be able to do that and make the money you need, preferably a lot more than you need, that's success.
Success. Andrew, thank you for joining us. But before you go, you need to let the people listening and the people watching know how to get in contact with you, know how to purchase your book and any other thing that you're offering.
So number one, if you want to buy the book, it's on Amazon, where everything in the world is. Entrepreneur's Odyssey. My last name's Ackerman. I don't think there's any other combination like that. Plus, it looks like this. So like if you're looking at something else, that ain't it. If you're interested in learning a little bit more, my personal website is andrewb.ackerman.com. Got a little bit more and links to the book, of course. And beyond that, like, listen, just, you got to find what you love. And hopefully what you love is something that you can actually support yourself with. And if it ain't entrepreneurship, it can be something else. I love this thing, but I'll be the first to admit, like, it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Andrew, thank you for joining us on Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled. What I appreciate about this conversation is that we didn't just talk about startups and companies, fundings and rounds and business models. We talked about the founder as a person, the pressure, the doubts, the lessons, the mistakes, the resilience, even though I know you say that word can be overused, and I agree with you, but it is so apropos. We talked about that resilience, and we talked about the transformation that happens when someone chooses to build something from the ground up. For every entrepreneur, investor, and innovator, and dreamer that is listening today, Andrew's journey is a reminder that building something meaningful takes time. It takes more than just a good idea. It takes courage, humility, adaptability, and the willingness to keep learning through every setback. To watch Ingleside Reviews Innovators Unveiled, you can find us on Brave Hearts TV. You can find us on YouTube. You can listen to us in the Alive Podcast Network app, and you can listen to us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, and never stop unveiling the innovator in you. I'm your host, A.D. Edwards, signing off.
This has been Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled, hosted by A.D. Edwards. For more conversations with innovators and business professionals, follow the show on your favorite podcast app, subscribe on YouTube, watch on the Bravehearts TV network, and visit innovatorsunveiled.com to learn more about the show and upcoming guests.